It was minus 70 degrees, and I was locked outside by my boyfriend and bestie to freeze to death. After rebirth, I won 80 million in the lottery and built a top-notch safe house. When the cold wave returned, watching them fight over a biscuit on the monitor, I smiled. 3 people can't survive. It's your turn this time. I died on a freezing night, minus 70 degrees. The biting cold wind cut into my skin like a knife. I huddled in the wreckage of a discarded vehicle, watching my own breath quickly condense into ice crystals in the air. My fingers were already blackened with frostbite, and my consciousness was starting to blur. But the coldest part wasn't my body, it was my heart. 3 hours ago, I was still in that warm apartment with Iker and Freya. The 3 of us were college classmates. After graduation, we shared an apartment, facing this sudden extreme cold apocalypse together. At least, I thought we were facing it together. Iker stood at the door, his eyes flickering, not daring to meet mine. Anna, I'm sorry, we really don't have enough supplies. Behind him, Freya was wrapped in my down jacket, holding my last hot water bottle. Brother Shio is right. 3 people can't survive. Freya's voice was sickeningly sweet. You're always the strongest. You'll definitely find another way, right? I stared at this cheating couple in disbelief. 3 days ago, I gave the last piece of chocolate to Freya. A week ago, I risked going out to find supplies and almost lost 2 fingers to frostbite, all for the sake of finding cold medicine for Iker. And now, they're kicking me out. My voice trembled uncontrollably. Iker, you promised you'd protect me. Iker avoided my gaze. Anna, this is for everyone's good. You should leave. As the door closed in front of me, I heard Freya giggle. Brother Shio, it's finally just the 2 of us. That was the last thing I heard. 3 hours later, my heart stopped beating, but my consciousness eerily floated in the air, watching my frozen corpse, and watching Iker and Freya embracing for warmth in the apartment not far away. I'm not giving up. If I could have a do-over, I'll make sure you pay for this in blood. I suddenly opened my eyes, the glaring sunlight making me instinctively raise my hand to shield them. Wait, sunlight, warmth. I looked around and found myself sitting in a study room in the university library, the computer in front of me displaying the date, November 1st, 2035, 1 month before the extreme cold apocalypse descended. Aurora, what are you spacing out about? A familiar voice came from beside me, Freya nudging my shoulder. Iker wants to know if you want to go for hot pot tonight. I turned my head and saw Freya's meticulously made up face and Iker's gentle smile, and my stomach churned. This wasn't a dream. I had truly been reborn, back to before the tragedy began. I forced a smile, packed my bag, and hurried away. I'm feeling a bit unwell. I'm going back to the dorm. Walking on campus, I pinched my thigh. The pain felt so real it made me want to cry. Rebirth really happened to me, but more real was the bone, chilling cold and the pain of betrayal from my memories. I took a deep breath and pulled out my phone to check my bank balance. 3,215.6 yuan. Just like I remembered, at this time in my previous life, I had just paid rent and was worrying about living expenses for the end of the month. But things were different now. I remembered the winning numbers for the lottery on November 3rd. The jackpot was 80 million. Because it was Iker's birthday, I inexplicably remembered that set of numbers. This time, I'll let you taste what it's like to be abandoned. 3 days later, wearing a mask and a baseball cap, I cashed in my prize at a lottery station on the outskirts of the city. After taxes, 64 million was directly deposited into my account. The bank manager bowed and scraped while providing me with VIP service. But my mind was filled with only one thought: stock up on supplies, build a safe house, survive, and then get revenge. I found a 3-story house on the outskirts of the city, with a landlord who was eager to go abroad. I paid a year's rent up front, on the condition that I could move in immediately and make renovations. The landlord looked at the truck from the construction material market behind me, with a confused expression. Miss, you are going to... I smiled and handed him a thick red envelope. My elderly parents get cold easily, so I want to reinforce the house. Don't worry, I won't damage the main structure. The same day I got the keys, I contacted a construction team, thickened walls, triple glazed windows, underfloor heating. solar panels, diesel generator, water purification equipment. My experience surviving in the apocalypse in my past life made it clear what I needed. Meanwhile, I started hoarding supplies like crazy, just a few hours before I died. The heavy snow had already reached my waist. In that situation, it was impossible to go out. If there weren't enough supplies at home, even if I didn't freeze to death, I would starve. In a warehouse supermarket on the outskirts, I pushed 5 shopping carts and, under the surprised gaze of the staff, cleared the shelves of canned food, compressed biscuits, instant noodles, and various self-heating hot pots and snail noodles, considering that in such harsh environment, I can't just eat instant food and my body must meet basic nutritional needs. I bought another 100 boxes of sweet shrimp, 50 gene of chicken legs, 50 gene of ribs, 100 gene of beef, 500 gene of rice, 50 gene of flour, 200 boxes of water, and 100 bags each of seasonings, oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, MSG, and chicken essence. Worried that the power might go out, I bought 100 boxes of candles, 50 high-power banks, and 2 boxes each of matches and lighters, daily necessities, toilet paper, sanitary napkins, toothpaste, toothbrushes, towels, shampoo, skincare products. The first aid kit was stuffed with antibiotics, painkillers, and frostbite cream. I also specifically bought 10 sets of top-grade cold-proof clothing and 20 heat packs. In my past life, I froze to death precisely because I lacked these. The delivery driver looked at the supplies filling half the garage and wiped his sweat. "Miss, are you opening a supermarket?" I lied with a straight face. "Company year end bonus. Thank you for your trouble." Every night, I meticulously recorded the day's preparations and the plan for what's next in my notebook. On the last page of the notebook, there were photos of Iker and Freya, with a big cross drawn in red ink over them. November 15th, 2 weeks before the extreme cold arrived. My safe house was basically completed. The walls were thickened by 30 centimeters and filled with the best insulation materials. All windows were replaced with bulletproof, triple, glazed vacuum glass. The roof is laid with solar panels, and the basement is equipped with a diesel generator sufficient to support 3 months. The attic has been converted into a greenhouse for growing fast-growing vegetables. I stood in the living room, looking at the thermometer showing 22 degrees Celsius, and remembered the -70 degrees at the last moment of my previous life, and shivered involuntarily. The phone suddenly rang. It was Iker. I stared at the flickering name on the screen, a cold smile curling up the corner of my mouth. My voice, when I heard it myself, made me want to throw up. "Hey, bro show, yeah, where have you been these past few days? Ching Ching and I are very worried about you." Iker's voice was as gentle as ever, and in my previous life, I was deceived by this pretense. I casually made up an excuse. "I was taking care of my sick aunt and forgot to tell you. By the way, I'll treat you to a meal on the weekend. I have something to tell you." After hanging up the phone, I went to the basement, where there was a specially prepared room, the monitoring room. 6 screens displayed real-time images from different angles around the house. In my previous life, the apartment we rented was easily broken into by robbers because there was no surveillance. This time, I want to make sure everything is foolproof. On the weekend, I specifically chose a high-end restaurant. Iker and Freya arrived one after the other, and when they saw the private room I had booked, the same surprise flashed in their eyes. Freya looked at the luxurious decoration of the private room, a hint of imperceptible jealousy in her tone. "Anna, have you struck it rich?" I smiled and handed over the menu. "Aunt gave me some money. Order what you like." During the meal, I carefully observed the interaction between the two. Iker kept serving food to Freya, while Freya would always accidentally touch Iker's hand. I never noticed these details in my past life. I was truly blind. Freya and I were college classmates. Her family wasn't well off, and her monthly living allowance was only 200 yuan. I often saw her eating cold steamed buns in the dorm, and her clothes were old and worn. I felt sorry for her and helped her as much as I could, lending her half of my living expenses. Even when I saw her going in and out of hotels with different men, I never looked down on her, only feeling heartbroken for her. I considered her my best friend. confiding in her my thoughts and little secrets, telling her that Iker was the person I liked. After I started dating him, I'd even drag her out shopping together, afraid she'd feel neglected now that I had a boyfriend. But I treated her sincerely, and she, in turn, stole my boyfriend and even conspired to take my life. At this very moment, they are sitting in front of me, chatting and laughing, treating me like air. I pretended to casually bring it up. "Oh, by the way, do you know it's gonna get colder next week?" Iker was unconcerned. "It's winter. It's normal." My friend from the meteorology department said it might be especially cold. I lowered my voice. "Do you guys want to prepare some supplies?" Anna chuckled. "Anna, when did you get so timid? If it's cold, just turn on the air conditioning." I lowered my head and took a sip of soup, hiding the chill in my eyes. In my past life, I was just as naive until the power and water went out, and the air conditioner became useless scrap. Only then did I realize the seriousness of the problem. "Right, you said you had something to tell us," Iker asked. I put down my spoon, putting on a shy expression. "Actually, I won a small prize and bought a house in the suburbs. I want to invite you over for a housewarming this weekend." Their eyes lit up simultaneously. "Anna, you're amazing." Freya excitedly grabbed my hand. "How much did you win?" I said casually it was a few $100,000, deliberately downplaying the amount. In my past life, I trusted them too much and told them everything, only to be completely devoured. Iker's expression was a little subtle. "Why did you suddenly think of buying a house?" "Investment," I said with a smile, changing the subject. "Saturday at 10 a.m. I'll send you the location." Watching their retreating backs, the smile on my face gradually disappeared. The fish have taken the bait, and now it's time to reel them in. Saturday morning, I did a final check of the safe house's facilities. The fireplace flame flickered, and the indoor temperature was a constant 25 degrees Celsius. The shelves in the underground storage room were neatly stacked with enough food and daily necessities for one person for 5 years. The weapons cabinet hid an electric baton, pepper spray, and a hunting rifle, which I bought at a high price on the black market. Although illegal, laws had long become obsolete in the apocalypse. The doorbell rang precisely at 10 o'clock. I saw Iker and Freya standing outside the door through the monitor. Iker was holding a bottle of red wine. As soon as Freya entered, she complained, "Anna, your place is way too out of the way. The taxi fare cost me over 200 yuan. Quiet, the air is good." I took the wine from Iker. I gave them a tour of the house, deliberately skipping the reinforced walls and various survival equipment, only showing the ordinary living space. The two were clearly not very interested in my new home, until they walked into the kitchen. "Why is this refrigerator so big?" Iker opened the double-door refrigerator, which was packed with fresh ingredients. I smiled and took out the hot pot base. "I like cooking. How about spicy hot pot today?" During the meal, I deliberately plied the two with alcohol. Iker's alcohol tolerance wasn't great. After 3 cups, he started talking a lot. Freya's cheeks were even more flushed, and her eyes were hazy. I pretended to envy them, saying, Iker's hand trembled and the chopsticks fell on the table. "Anna, what you said." "Oh dear, Anna, don't misunderstand," Freya quickly explained, but subconsciously leaned closer to Iker. I sneered inwardly, but put on an expression of sudden realization. "Oh, I get it. You guys have been together for a while, right? Why keep it from me?" Iker's expression was as if he'd been struck by lightning. "Anna, listen to me explain." "No need to explain." I burst out laughing and clapped my hands. I saw it coming. "Actually, I should tell you too. I have a boyfriend, introduced by my family, and some of the money for this house comes from him." The expressions on their faces shifted from panic to surprise, then to a subtle relief. I could almost read their minds. "Great, no more pretending. And Aurora actually hooked up with a rich guy." "Anna, you're not being fair, telling us such big news only now," Freya said coquettishly, pouring herself another drink. Halfway through the hot pot, a strong wind suddenly blew outside, and the sky quickly darkened. I walked to the window, watching the rapidly gathering dark clouds, my heart racing. 3 days earlier than in my past life, the extreme cold apocalypse was about to begin. What's with the weather all of a sudden? Iker's words were cut short as a huge crash of hail hitting the roof sounded from outside. Instantly, it was pitch black. I quickly walked over to the control panel, activating the backup power and heating system. The lights in the entire house flickered for a moment before returning to normal. Freya looked at me in surprise. "Anna, what is this?" "Looks like my friend from the meteorology department was right," I said, my expression turning serious. "They said this might be a global extreme cold wave that will last a long time." "Isn't that an exaggeration? It'll be cold for a few days at most," Iker said dismissively. I didn't argue, just turned on the TV. All channels were broadcasting emergency news. A polar cold front moving south, national temperatures plummeting to historic lows, and the government advising citizens to stock up on supplies and minimize going outside. Freya's face changed. "Then we need to hurry back to the city." "I'm afraid it's too late," I said, pointing outside the window. In just a few short minutes, the world outside was covered in a blanket of white. The snow depth increased at a visible rate, completely covering the roads. Even more terrifying was the temperature. The thermometer hanging under the eaves showed that the outdoor temperature had already dropped to -20 degrees Celsius and was still falling. Iker tried to call a taxi with his phone, but the signal had become extremely unstable. "Damn it, it's not connecting. You guys should stay here tonight," I said gently. "The guest rooms are all ready." The two exchanged a look and reluctantly nodded in agreement. I led them to the guest rooms on the second floor, deliberately arranging for only one. I blinked innocently. "This room has the best heating. Anyway, you two are a couple now, so it's fine, right?" Freya blushed, and Iker coughed awkwardly twice. I thoughtfully closed the door, a cold smile curling on my lips. Back in the monitoring room, I pulled up the footage from the hidden camera in the guest room. In my past life, they lived happily after my death, and now I want to watch them step by step towards destruction with my own eyes. In the footage, Iker and Freya quickly embraced. The air conditioner was set to heat, but Freya's teeth were still chattering, her voice trembling with tears. "Brother Shio, what do we do? If it's really as serious as the news says," Iker comforted her. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." But his hand restlessly slid into Freya's clothes. "Aurora has plenty of supplies here. Let's stay put until the weather improves." I turned off the monitor, my stomach churning. The same conversation, the same actions, just happening earlier this time. In my past life, they hooked up a week after the extreme cold hit. It seems my new romance has made them completely drop their pretense. It was late at night, and the wind outside wailed like a vengeful spirit. The thermometer showed the outside temperature had dropped to -50 degrees Celsius, close to the low temperature that killed me in my past life. I wrapped myself tighter in my down comforter, but felt warmer and safer than ever before. The next morning, I was jolted awake by urgent knocking. Iker's voice was full of panic. "Anna, something terrible has happened." I slowly got up and opened the door, seeing him with a pale face holding his phone. "All communications are down. The TV has no signal either," I said calmly. "It seems the situation is more serious than we thought. Let's go downstairs for breakfast and talk while we eat." At the dining table, Freya kept scrolling through her unresponsive phone, tears welling up in her eyes. "How could this happen? I can't reach my parents. I don't know if they're okay back home." I handed her a cup of hot milk. "Calm down. Panicking now won't help. We need to find a way to survive." Iker suddenly grabbed my hand. "Anna, you said yesterday you knew about this cold snap. Do you know something?" I looked at the fear and hope in his eyes and gently pulled my hand away. "My friend from the meteorology department studies extreme climates. He predicted this cold snap might last for months, or even longer." "Months?" Freya screamed. "What do we do then? Is there enough food?" "I usually have a habit of stocking up," I said vaguely on purpose. "If we eat sparingly, we should be able to hold on for a while." For the next 3 days, the outdoor temperature continued to drop, finally stabilizing around -70 degrees Celsius. Just like in my past life, the whole world seemed to be put on pause. With power, internet, and water cut off, only my safe house was running on solar power and a diesel generator. Iker and Freya gradually became anxious after their initial panic. The morning of the 4th day, I found them rummaging through cabinets and drawers in the kitchen. I stood at the doorway and asked, "What are you looking for?" The two of them jumped, and Iker forced a smile, saying, "We wanted to help make breakfast, but we couldn't find any ingredients." The ingredients are in the basement. I stared at their flustered expressions. It's locked, and the low temperature is good for storing food. I'll bring up the day's portion every day. Freya exploded. Anna, what do you mean by this? Treating us like outsiders. Resources are limited and must be allocated reasonably. My tone was indifferent. If you're not satisfied, you can leave. Iker immediately softened, took a deep breath, and slowed his tone, saying, Anna, Freya didn't mean it like that. We're just worried. If the cold snap lasts a long time, then you'll have to follow my arrangements. I turned and walked towards the stairs. Today we'll eat canned food and compressed biscuits. Follow me to get them. The iron door to the basement had an electronic keypad lock. I deliberately turned my back to them and entered the password, making sure they couldn't see it. The air inside was biting cold. The sight of the supplies neatly stacked on the shelves made the two of them gasp. Freya hadn't expected them to be so well prepared. So much. It's only enough for me for 5 years. I deliberately emphasized, me. Now with 2 extra mouths, it'll last 2 years at most. Iker's expression turned grim. I could tell he was calculating. 2 years. And if only one person was left, they could live even longer. That night, the atmosphere between the two was clearly not as sweet as usual. They had a fierce argument in the guest room, and Freya shouted in exasperation, What should we do? It's minus 70 degrees outside now. Are we really going to stay here forever with that? Iker also lost his patience and threw his phone. Is there any other way besides staying here? She's clearly guarding against us. So much supplies, but she only gives us a little every day like feeding dogs. Freya shivered as she wrapped the quilt around herself, pointing at Iker and scolding him. Are you even a man? You do whatever she tells you to do. Are you a pig? Didn't you boast that she liked you? How come she won't even share food with you? Iker was furious and slapped Freya. Believe it or not, I'll kill you right now. After being slapped, Freya became much more obedient. After a while, Iker suddenly darkened his face. If it were just the two of us, the supplies would last longer. I turned off the monitor, my heart pounding. History is repeating itself. Only the roles are reversed this time. In my past life, they abandoned me to survive. Now it's their turn to kill each other. I'm really looking forward to their outcome now. Turned off the monitor. I checked the time. It was only 10 o'clock. I ate the same thing as them tonight, and my stomach is already growling. On such a cold day, of course, you need a bowl of hot dumplings to feel refreshed. Take out an 8-inch large bowl. Add some seaweed, some cilantro, some lard, a spoonful of soy sauce, a spoonful of vinegar, a pinch of salt. Add some dumpling broth and stir. And finally put in the main star, the 3 delicacy stuffed dumplings. A bowl of fragrant, steaming hot dumplings is done. After eating the dumplings, I nestled in my warm bed and watched some TV before going to sleep. The next day, I woke up at 11 o'clock. With nothing to do, I opened my phone's monitor and found Iker and Freya whispering in the room. These two are full of mischief, not a good one among them. Outside, the heavy snow had almost buried the windows and showed no sign of stopping, with large snowflakes falling from the sky. For 3 days, they had gone from initial panic to anxious restlessness, like wild beasts trapped in a cage. At breakfast, Freya covered her stomach with one hand and hugged my arm with the other, acting spoiled. Anna, can you give me a bit more food today? My stomach hasn't been feeling well the last couple of days. I took a slow bite of a compressed biscuit. Resources are limited, and each person has a daily ration. If you're not feeling well, I can find you some medicine. Iker suddenly slammed his spoon on the table. Aurora, what do you mean by this? Are you treating us like prisoners? I looked up at him, the man I had loved to death in my past life, whose eyes were now full of anger and a hint of fear. What a beautiful combination. Brother Shio, what are you saying? I put on an injured expression. I'm just ensuring we can live longer. If you're not satisfied, the door is right there. Iker's imposing aura immediately weakened. He knew that outside was a deadly world of minus 70 degrees, and this was his only shelter. I'm just worried about Ching Ching. His imposing aura weakened, but feeling like he'd lost face, he pulled up his voice and shouted, She's never been very healthy. Besides, isn't she your best friend? What's yours is hers, right? I didn't expect you to be so petty and calculative. My eyes were rolling so hard they were practically out of my head. How shameless can you get? In my past life, when I was kicked out, I didn't see you two caring about me like this. I suppressed my physiological discomfort towards the two of them and forced out a kind smile. I understand. How about this? I'll make some hot soup for lunch today, and we can all have some together. Seeing the flicker of hope in their eyes, I secretly noted, hunger is a great weapon. After lunch, I deliberately asked Iker to help clear the dishes. In the kitchen, accidentally touched his hand. Sorry. I pretended to be flustered and withdrew my hand. My cheeks slightly flushed. Iker froze, a complex expression flashing in his eyes. I know what he's thinking. Does Aurora still have feelings for me? Then can he? Yeah. He took a step forward, trying to grab my hand. Brother Shio. Freya's voice came from the doorway, sharp as fingernails scraping glass. Can you help me find my scarf? Iker left in a hurry, and I lowered my head to continue washing the dishes. A cold smile curling up the corner of my mouth. The show is about to begin. Evening. I went to the basement to get some peanuts, sunflower seeds, and a fruit platter. Sitting by the warm fireplace, everything was ready. I turned on the monitor, and as expected, it showed the two of them erupting into a fierce argument. Freya sat on the floor, sobbing and questioning Iker. What were you doing in the kitchen just now? Iker was lying down playing a game, not even lifting his head, just helping with the dishes. Can you stop being so suspicious? Hearing this, Freya instantly exploded, lunging forward and pulling Iker's hair as she said, I saw it. She touched your hand. Tell me, when did you and that get back together? Do you still like her? Iker remained silent, a silence more damaging than any answer. Freya looked at Iker in disbelief, tears falling with a patter. Fine, Iker, now that you're living off her, you want to dump me, right? Seeing this, Iker could only sigh helplessly. Keep your voice down. We still have to rely on her right now. Can you be a bit more sensible? Watching them tear each other apart, I turned off the monitor and went to sleep with satisfaction. The seeds of division have been sown, now just waiting for them to take root and sprout. The next morning, I found Freya's eyes swollen and red, clearly from crying all night. Iker, on the other hand, kept avoiding her gaze. The weather doesn't seem as cold today, I said intentionally. The weather forecast says the cold snap might end within a week. The expressions on both their faces changed immediately. Freya grabbed my hand excitedly. Really, can we go home? Just possibly. I added, but if that's the case, we'll have to conserve our supplies and hold on until the end. Iker's eyes flickered. Anna, if the cold snap ends, what are your plans? I pretended to think. I might go abroad to find my boyfriend. This house, I'll probably sell it. I saw Iker and Freya exchange a look. A greedy one. In my previous life, they abandoned me to survive. Now, for the sake of property, what will they do? Over the next few days, I continued my little game, giving Iker a bit more food, and being harsh with Freya, deliberately wearing thin clothes in front of Iker, but giving Freya the thickest blanket, recalling the good times in college with Iker in front of Freya. The fifth morning, Freya finally exploded. She rushed into the kitchen, her face contorted. Aurora, you did this on purpose, didn't you? You're seducing Iker. You're withholding my food. I looked innocent. Freya, what are you talking about? Do you misunderstand me? Freya screamed. Stop pretending. You're just jealous that I'm with Iker. Enough. Iker rushed in and grabbed her. Are you crazy? This is our only shelter. Freya shook off his hand. You're protecting her. I knew it. You two have been together behind my back. She suddenly grabbed the fruit knife on the table and pointed it at me. Iker hastily blocked in front of me. How ironic this scene was. In his previous life, he pushed me to my death. But in this life, he protects me. Freya, put down the knife. Freya completely broke down and cried hysterically. You all want me dead, right? Fine. I'm leaving. She turned and rushed towards the main door. Iker hesitated for a second, and surprisingly didn't chase after her. He said in a low voice, "It's so cold outside. Let her go out and cool down. She'll be back soon." I walked to the window and watched Freya's frail figure rush into the wind and snow. -60 degrees extreme cold. The snow was almost up to her chest. Without cold, proof clothing, she wouldn't last 10 minutes. Iker sat there, stunned. Aren't you going after her? He avoided my gaze, his eyes darting around, repeating, she'll come back, she'll come back. No, she won't. I looked at the thermometer, my heart as calm as can be. First revenge target, completed. Iker paced restlessly in the living room, checking the door every 5 minutes. An hour later, he finally realized Freya wasn't coming back. Anna, should we? His voice trembled. Go look for her. I sneered, like how you kicked me out back then. Iker's face instantly turned pale. What are you talking about? I slowly stood up, took out a notebook from the drawer, and flipped to the last page. It recorded the time, place, and temperature of my death in my previous life. December 3rd, 2035, minus 70 degrees Celsius. Kicked out of the apartment by Iker and Freya. Froze to death on the street. Iker stumbled backward as if he'd seen a ghost. This is impossible. I've been reborn. Iker, I said calmly. I died once and came back to life, just to see how you two die. His knees buckled, and he knelt on the floor. Anna, I was wrong. I was out of my mind. It was all her. This who seduced me. You're the only one I've ever loved. I walked over to the control panel and turned off the heating in the guest room. No, you were perfectly lucid. You knew what minus 70 degrees meant, and you still pushed me out. Please, he crawled over, trying to grab my leg, but I dodged him. I watched him with a smile. Do you know why I kept you alive until now? Because I wanted you to experience the fear Freya felt before she died. Now, it's your turn. I pressed the unlock button for the main door, and a cold wind immediately rushed into the room. No, Anna, for our 3 years of relationship, I sneered. Are you worthy of saying those 2 words? Get out. Iker suddenly lunging towards the kitchen knives rack. But I was faster. I pulled the hunting rifle I bought on the black market from under the sofa cushion. I pointed the gun at him. Guess why I bought this? It was for this moment. Iker's face turned ashen, and he retreated step by step to the door. You'll get what's coming to you. He roared his last. I clicked off the safety. No, this is what's coming to you. The moment the door closed, the world returned to silence. I walked over to the monitor and watched Iker stumble into the wind and snow. He disappeared into the snow after just a couple of steps. 2 hours later, I found 2 bodies, like ice sculptures, in 2 different directions. Freya was curled up under a tree, her face still contorted with anger and fear. Iker was lying 500 meters from the safe house, his hand outstretched forward, as if trying to crawl back. I turned off the monitor and poured myself a cup of hot chocolate. The taste of revenge was sweeter than I imagined. 3 days later, the thermometer began to slowly rise. Minus 60 degrees, minus 55 degrees, minus 50 degrees. A week later, the outdoor temperature returned to minus 20 degrees, and it was possible to go out briefly. I put on my cold weather suit and walked out of the safe house for the first time. Sunlight shone on the snow, reflecting a dazzling glare. Back inside, I burned the revenge notebook. The ashes danced in the fireplace, just like my past life's grudges, finally vanishing into smoke. The TV suddenly got a signal, and the news anchor excitedly announced the end of the extreme cold weather, and the government was organizing rescue efforts. I watched the continuously rising numbers on the thermometer, knowing that a new life was about to begin. This time, I will no longer believe in wrong love, nor will I make the same mistakes. Rebirth gave me not only the chance for revenge, but also the right to choose my life anew. Outside the window, the ice and snow began to melt, and in my heart, the severe winter had finally passed.